Hello there and welcome to another Why You Lost. This one sent to me by Don Anakin playing as the Greenskins, and he's fighting a crappy housewife of the Empire, apparently. Now, as a Greenskins player, I have to say, this one pains me. Naturally, I hate to see the Greenskins lose, but to the Empire, to those squishy Empire human things, come on now, Greenskins, what happened? Even before the Warden on the Paunch DLC, I always found Greenskins versus Empire a very easy matchup for the Greenskins to win, and now with Warden on the Paunch it's even easier, so this should be an absolute slaughter. But let's see what happened. He has got quite lucky on the start position, as he's got the more defensive side. He could sit up here and bombard the enemy if he had artillery, but he doesn't. But it's still lucky because his enemy does have the Sunmaker, so if his enemy had this side, he would probably be sitting on that hill just bombing him and choke pointing up. So he's very lucky that he got the better side of the two. So his front line is 4 units of Orc Boys, perfectly fine against the Empire, a good choice. And he's backed those with good old Trolls, 3 units of regular Trolls. I assume by the looks of it, he's going to try and mix them in with the Orc Boys so they can work together. He's got 3 units of Savage Orc Arrow Boys. Not sure he maybe needs quite that many against the Empire, but 3 of them, nothing wrong with that. They could still do some work. 2 units of Savage Orc Boar Boys on this side, 2 units of Forest Goblin Archers, and 2 more Savage Boars on this side. So he's got a whole bunch of cavalry, lots of infantry, got some trolls. He's got a good little army. More than capable of smashing these Greenskins. It's very spread out though, which is good in a way. It's good to be wide, but it's all broken up by the map. The Empire though is kind of in a box with a front line of great swords, 3 units of those. Boxed around the edges is just regular spearmen, the cheap ones with no shield, so they're not going to be super tough to get through. Does have the Sunmaker, as I mentioned, and a couple of units of archers, who are honestly one of the worst archer units in the game, so I'm not sure why he chose these. They don't have very much range, they don't hit very hard, but he does have a unit of halberd demigriffs who do, in fact, hit very hard. So they're going to be good for taking out the enemy cav, or the Orc Boar Boy Savage Boar Bastards, or whatever they're called. His lord is Volkmar on his altar. He can be tough to deal with, as he is unbreakable. And he has the Amber Wizard on his flying mount. So, not a fantastic Empire build, if we're being honest, and he's boxed up, so he obviously is a little bit unconfident in his ability to take enemies down. But he does have a strong front line, so that's the only real worry for him, and that Sunmaker is going to do a lot of damage, hitting some of these Orc Boys early. But hopefully they're going to work together with the Trolls to take down those great swords nice and quick. That's what I'd be trying to do anyway. Demigriff's pushing out towards his Orc Boys. This is obviously a terrible matchup for the Savage Orc Boar Boys. But if they get in the charge and maybe flank round and charge with the other one and sandwich them, they might be able to do some fair damage to them, even if they lose. The Spearmen, not too much of a worry. They're not shielded, so he could shoot them with his missiles, potentially. He's basically got all the answers to what the Empire has. Now, Anakin has Wurzag as his Lord and the Black Orc Big Boss, I forgot to mention. Battle's getting underway now. Things are starting to come in. A unit of Trolls has got a little bit ahead of itself. It's kind of ahead of the rest of the army. Demigriff's coming in. He's going to try to go around them, it seems, instead of actually just charging into them, which is going to cost him. He could have actually done a good bit of damage if he just charged them back, so he should have done that. He's not done any damage to them now, but it has allowed the other unit to sneak past, so sometimes you do have to sacrifice a unit like that for the greater good. Volkmar dropping some abilities. Not a huge worry, though. It's only on the 1 unit. These Spearmen come out to try and catch Boar Boys. They shouldn't really do that. They should just stay back. This is going to make the gap wider so that these Boar Boys can sneak in. He's dropping a foot of Gork on the Sunmaker. A nice play. That pretty much wipes it out. He's going to sneak his cav in here. Nice to get after the archers. Good bit of micro to get those through there. The Demigriff's in pursuit, though. He has routed off the Sunmaker, so that was a good play. That's going to save his army a lot of damage, taking out one of the strongest units of this Empire army. But here we can kind of see the beginning of the end and what's kind of going wrong with this battle. So his army, if you might notice, the Greenskins army is all over the place. There's a couple of units of Trolls coming to engage here by themselves. There's a bunch of stuff back here, some routed units. Of course, that's not his fault. And then there's a whole bunch of units over this side, still moving up. Some of them not even engaged in combat yet, but they're all over here. And he also has a couple of units that he's seemingly forgotten back here. A unit of Orc Boys and Arrow Boys that could be of great use to him right now. So a bit of a micro error there. But the point is, his army is very disjointed right now. It's a bit all over the place. There's just parts of it scattered all over this battlefield, not really attacking as one cohesive unit. Meaning the full Empire army only has to deal with a few small sections of the enemy army at a time. And when they break those, the next ones will come along. And then they'll break those because they're all by themselves. Volkmar being very ballsy out here. He could jump on him potentially. But you can see these Trolls all by themselves. The great swords are being pulled back. They're going to be fighting spears, which is a bad matchup for them. Some cav coming around the flank here. Could charge this spearman. But he's not going to get it, and the Spearmen are going to stop him, so a wasted charge opportunity there. But we can see the Empire formation falling apart. It's not much of a box anymore. Over here, we've got a little bit of a problem. This spawned up Manticore. You can pretty much ignore this. It's going to die of its own accord anyway. You don't need to fight it, really. Just run away from it, minimize the damage it does, and it'll die by itself. So unless you've got the perfect anti-large unit to take it down quickly, I wouldn't really bother trying to fight that at all. These units could be over-helping the rest of the army. These trolls charging into spearmen, not a great matchup for the trolls. Those are anti-large spearmen, of course, so he maybe should have avoided those. Gone after some nearby greatswords instead, made better use of his trolls, taking out the stronger enemy units. Because even orc boys could take out those spearmen, no problem. More stuff being thrown onto this manticore needlessly. It looks like he is going to pull some stuff away now finally. But Volkmar is just out in the open, just asking to be murdered. Pulling back his cav. These need to just pull back and wait until the rest of the army attacks. So again, they can all come in together and stop attacking one little bit at a time. He's kind of half going after Volkmar here, half going after the rest of the army. These orc boys running into greatswords, not charging though, so another missed opportunity there. You can see these trolls all by themselves. Trolls don't have the leadership to be out alone like this. Trolls get spooked quite easily. So they need the support of other units, especially that Black Orc Big Boss. That's where he should be, with these trolls, helping them stay in the fight. A little bit of cav comes in. Another unit of trolls is moving up though. Just as one is broken, there is a foot of Gork coming in. On moving units, this usually isn't the best plan, but it does do a fair bit of damage here. Some on the great swords, a little bit on the spearmen. Probably hurt his own units a little bit, but not too bad. Probably could have waited though and used that in a better spot. But now we can really see the broken formations of this battle and how everything's a bit all over the place. Some greenskins here, some over here, some still fighting over here. These ones are still at the back, unfortunately mismicroed. But hey, that happens to the best of us. So it's just mostly a lack of support for the greenskins that are letting them down. These units aren't getting supported. Another unit of trolls here, all by themselves. Here's that foot of Gork spot on those great swords. That could have been nice, especially now the trolls have routed. But again, leaving those trolls by themselves, their leadership's broken. They're just two alone. Lonely trolls don't go far, as your mother always told you. He does have some good damage on Volkmar at this point, but the entire battle, the greenskins have kind of been divided. Half of the army has been fighting the main army over here, and then the rest seems to be going after Volkmar. Again, just dividing the army. He needs to just pick one. Either go all in, charging at the enemy army, or go all in trying to kill Volkmar, because he was out there all alone by himself, basically just driving around in a field. If he'd called all three of his troll units back, Wurzag, the Black Orc Big Boss, the missiles, all onto Volkmar, he would have had Volkmar dead very quickly. And then after that, he could have gone for the rest of the army. So it just needed to kind of pick one rather than dividing the army. A few units here, these want to fall back now. They're beaten up. They're all alone against a bunch of Empire enemies. They're just going to rout off if they attack anything. So they need to fall back and come and join with the rest of the army back here. Again, to try and get that little unit, that little formation, so then they can charge out and finish off the enemy. Attacking little bits here and there can very often lead to this kind of disjointed battle, which allows the enemy to pick off parts of your army one by one. These trolls in this bad matchup again with the spearmen. Trolls regenerate. You can leave them out of the fight for a while and bring them back later. Try and avoid these matchups. Bring them back to the rest of the army to make the use of them. Got some orc boys here. Still got these couple back here. These will be very helpful to him right now. I'm not sure they would win the battle for him, but they would definitely help out. Nearly got Volkmar dead over here. Putting a lot of work and a lot of effort into getting Volkmar dead, but can't quite do it. Volkmar going to drop a banishment here. Those spider riders getting out of there though, just in the nick of time, most of them. Good work to avoid that, but he's nearly got Volkmar dead. Down to a few hundred health. If he could kill him, he could maybe finish this off, because the favor bar is actually slightly in his favor. It reckons the greenskins are going to win, so he's got this potentially if he wants it. Kind of in part to those two units that have been left behind in full health. Those are probably keeping his CP up, keeping him in the fight. If he brings those down to help now and he takes out Volkmar now, he could probably win it. If he brings his trolls back, lets them regenerate a bit, those trolls will finish off all these beaten up greatswords and spears. He's got Arab boys running away from spearmen here, but he could probably actually beat those up in melee, because Arab boys are good in melee. Volkmar still pushing his luck though. Some missiles coming in after him. The Black Orc Big Boss is on him. He's got 200 health. All he needs to do is give him a good slap and he's going down. But he can't get him. He's regenerating. Volkmar down to 60 health. You can see it regenerating on the left. 80. He's creeping up. Somehow Volkmar avoided getting murdered there. The Demigryphs have come to save him. They've slowed down the Big Boss. He's going to get out of there even though the Spider Riders are all over him. He has lost Wurzag as well. He lost him a little while ago, I think. I'm not sure where. I must have missed it. But even so, the favor bar still thinks he's got a good chance to win. Mostly, again, these two units that could be helping down here, saving the day. But that's just unfortunate. Most of Anakin's problem here is that he wasn't attacking together, and he didn't keep the high ground like Obi-Wan told him. Okay, not really. He couldn't keep the high ground in this one because the Sunmaker was going to blast him to pieces if he tried that. So he had to push on the enemy, and he did well to take out the Sunmaker. He did well to get that cav in there to get after the archers. It's just the rest of his army wasn't with him when he did that. If he had his orc boys attacking those great swords with the trolls in helping those orc boys, he would have destroyed those great swords quickly. The spearmen on the edges wouldn't have really done a lot if he brought that savage orc cav in just to charge them, cycle charge them a bit. So he had all the answers to the Empire units. He had the good matchups if he wanted them, but his army was just a little bit too far apart. Wurzag doing some good damage value with that magic. Good work from the big boss. Orc boys not doing too much. They didn't really get into the fight too much. That one that didn't get pulled into the battle didn't do anything. Good work from the Arrow boys taking on Volkmar. Good work from some of these Savage Orcs. One of the Boar boys did well. Nice work from the Archers though, and the Trolls. One of them did well. The other two not so much. So a few units doing well, but a lot of units really underperforming, which is what let him down. Again, like I say, just the cohesion was needed. Volkmar not doing fantastically there. Caster doing a bit. Some of these spearmen, 700. That's really good for these crappy spearmen. That's probably when they were fighting the Savage Orc Boar boys. Great swords didn't do a great deal. The archers. One of them did surprisingly more than you'd expect. Demigryphs were always around. They did alright. And the Sunmaker got taken out early. So good effort by Anakin. He had some good initiative to push on the enemy. He had the nice little flank with the Cav early and the Foot of Gork on the Sunmaker. He just needed his front line to be there to support him when he did that. And he probably should have ignored Volkmar and just focused on taking out the army and then gone after Volkmar. But let's take a look at his build anyway and see what he maybe could have changed. Overall, I think this is a good build though. I don't think there's too much to change necessarily. It takes on the Empire just fine. A few issues with maybe the Lord and Hero though. So Wurzag on his Spleen Ripper, always a good call. Wurzag is useless on foot because he's very squishy. It's risky to take him without that. So always a good pick. For his abilities, he's pretty much taken off everything though, except Get Back Here, which is an essential spell to take, so it's good that he needs that. But there's a couple of others that I think should always be taken as well, like the Power of the War. This is just extra magic that'll give you, which is always useful. More Foot of Gorks, more Here We Goes. Always good to take that one. Warpaint could be another useful one to take if you're going to keep Wurzag with the front line with the Orc boys and Trolls. That 6% physical resistance really could have helped them out and made them a little bit tougher. So could have taken that one, but not essential. Wurzag's Revenge, don't really need this at all. I don't really like this. It's quite expensive and it may not get used at all if the enemy doesn't try to overcast. So it can be a complete waste depending on what the enemy does. So I don't really like those kind of things. So personally, I think that's fine to leave that one off. Get Back Here is obviously useful for the leadership buffs. And Effigy of the Git, this is another one I would always take. This helps Wurzag in many ways. Number one, it can help him pin things down if they're trying to chase him so he can stay safe. This could have been very useful for Volkmar that was charging around all over the place. Pinning him down for 13 seconds, letting something wail on him. That could have maybe helped him kill Volkmar. For the big boss, didn't have him on the boar, that's fine. If you're going to keep him on foot with the front line, it's all good. Didn't have a couple of important things though. Rabble Rouse first of all, immunity to psychology to nearby units. That is super useful for the Greenskins. For those Orc boys and those Trolls, that would have been very handy. Although there isn't a lot of fear and terror causing units in the Empire army, you still had a couple going around and this could have helped them out. So personally, I would always take this if bringing a bunch of Trolls, but it's not essential against the Empire because, like I say, not too much fear and terror. Get Back Here is a no-brainer again, and Heroic Killing Blow I usually take off if I want my Black Orc Big Boss to be a support character more than anything else. To save the money, I'd get rid of that, and I would definitely always take on a Black Orc Big Boss, the Brass Cleaver. Plus 9 melee attack to all nearby units, that's pretty huge. Those Trolls with extra 9 melee attack, and the Orc Boys with an extra 9 melee attack, all these frontline units would be so much more dangerous with an extra 9 melee attack from that big boss. So if you're going to bring a whole bunch of Trolls, bring a big boss and bring these things because they make them so much more dangerous. And obviously, keep them all together. Now, for the front line, the Orc boys, perfectly fine against the Empire. Mixing in the Trolls is always a good call. The Empire don't really have any answers to that in terms of frontline infantry. Another choice you could have had with this maybe, perhaps to make it easier to keep all your Trolls with your Black Orc Big Boss, you could have gone for 2 Stone Trolls instead. They're more expensive, so you can only bring 2. And you'd obviously have to adjust a bit more, but those tougher Trolls could be a little bit better, but nothing wrong with 3 normal Trolls at all. Just another option you could have gone with. 3 Savage Orc Arrow Boys. I don't think you really need this many missiles against the Empire. If you're going to try and outgun the Empire, you need to either bring a lot of missiles or not bother at all, for the most part anyway. Savage Orc Boar Boys, these are all good. Don't think those needed to change. You could have maybe saved a little bit of money by bringing the regular Orc Boar Boys, and they would have pretty much done the same job. You can see the stat comparison, so could have perhaps switched out those Savage Orc Boar Boys just for the regular Orc Boar Boys, just to save the money. You're going to save about 400 doing this. Could be worth it if the roll is pretty much the same. You can save the money and just get an extra unit of some kind. Maybe some more Forest Goblin Spider Riders. Or perhaps some nasty Skulkers would be good in this army. That Smoke Bomb could help catch things. Volkmar in this case. So there's a few different options of where you could put that money. But that's just another option. Again, another option. Nothing wrong with the Savage Orcs, I don't think. He could have easily won that battle with the Savage Orcs. Just a few other approaches he could have taken there. But overall, like I say, a fairly decent build. Just a few adjustments to Wurzag and the Black Orc Big Boss. And he would be laughing. So there we go. Greenskins versus Empire. Thanks to Anakin for sending me the replay. He did well taking the initiative and pushing on the enemy, getting those flanks in. His army composition was good. Just needs a little bit of work on the micro to make sure he gets those charges in on enemy units, and obviously not to forget those couple of units. Needs to keep an eye on his matchup so that he doesn't leave Trolls fighting anti-large units in Spearmen. And of course, just needs to get the cohesion of his army together, maybe putting the cavalry and the trolls further back at the start of the battle so that by the time they get up to the enemy army, the infantry should pretty much be there as well, and then he'd have a much more cohesive attacking force, and that would have smashed that Empire army into Sigmar's ballsack. What does that even mean? I hope you've enjoyed this apart from that last line. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future.